I read a lot of books on how to make films and how to write scripts when I didn't know any better, because I really wanted to get into film and I couldn't afford film school. I was already working at that time, so it's all just a jumble of whatever works for me, essentially. But I came out of a tradition of DIY filmmaking. I wasn't involved I didn't work in the film industry, I didn't go to film school, but I did hang out with a lot of DIY indie filmmakers, roughly around 2007 to 2010. All of them became my friends, of course, and it's that spirit that I sort of come from, and that spirit that I sort of try to imbibe when it comes to making films. In 2005, I started out as a film critic or a film blogger, mostly out of frustration because I couldn't get any scripts finished, couldn't get any projects made, and I didn't have any clue how to start directing. So, in a way, the film blog that I started was my way of immersing myself into the film scene, such as it is, or such as it was back then. I started directing stuff 2 years after I started my blog. Mostly, my background is in fine arts, so in between group shows where I exhibited paintings, I would shoot like installation videos for to augment the work. So that was sort of my way into directing, which is through experimental videos and gallery installations. And then eventually I started making my own short films and super low budget, no budget music videos. In 2014, my full-length script for Violator was picked up by Cinema One. And since then, I've been making films in a more or less legitimate way. I made a short film 2 years later called If You Leave, and I'm currently working on 2 medium-length films at the moment. I started out shooting installation videos. The longest one was called Entropy Machine. It was exhibited in 2011 at the Mo Space Gallery. It's one of my most traveled films, but it's technically not a film in the traditional sense. It's an experimental narrative installation piece, but it's been exhibited as a film in several countries. That was like 3 years before I finished the script for Violator. If You Leave came 2 years later, which is a short film for Q Cinema. And now I'm currently working on 2 episodes for a Malaysian horror anthology called Door, and preparing my second feature, hopefully next year. Since I write my own films, I haven't had experience of directing somebody else's script or adapting somebody else's material. So everything really comes from me. So I think it really starts in the act of writing. Of course, I try to keep the screenwriter and the director separate because it creates a sort of like conflict if you put them in the same space together. Because when you're writing, you sort of like direct it as well, and you also start thinking like a producer, and it sort of compromises the material. But I think it really starts in the writing. I always tell students that ask me these questions to always make sure they find their voice above all else. But when it comes to the actual shooting and the putting together of the film, I think it's very instinctive and intuitive on my end, and also very organic. So philosophically, maybe I'm guided more by filmmakers I admire. Not necessarily my favorite filmmakers, but filmmakers that I feel an affinity with when it comes to the material that I choose to make. But in terms of process, it's figuring out where the parts that I feel should be in the film, figuring out how they come together. Everything I've done so far, I've written. I've never directed somebody else's script or adapted somebody else's material. But for this masterclass, I think I will try and direct somebody else's script. Hello, my name is Dodo Dayao. I'm a filmmaker. I'm the director of Violator. I hope to teach you something practical that you can use when you make your own films, but I guarantee it'll be fun. Join me in this masterclass as we make a film together.